trying to add to the focus of
Right.
Right.
additional fields.
Well said, Sal.
No other comments, questions? We'll close the workshop, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. We'll see you in like 30 minutes.
You want to take a break, anybody,
Yes, please.
real quick?
Before they say we have to come back.
A lot of old guys on the board.
Yeah, that was, because it was so true. They are
yeah, well,
such a team.
Their workshops started.
I was texting back and forth to my brother, he's down in Florida. So, when you get to that, just bring up
Time it was,
getting older and getting more aches and pains, he says, tell me it's been at the goal.
no, absolutely. Well,
He's like,
I
tell
love
me
that.
you're gonna meet
You'd
baby
go
work.
to my house, she'd give their picture papers. And but it was really great because I knew I wouldn't be at that dinner, and I knew she was in France. So it was like, oh, it was on the website, or Facebook, I could see it. And it was wonderful.
She sent it to Jeannie, I didn't know it was on her.
Yeah, it was on
you have two
Facebook,
engines.
which was really great because
Workshop.
I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And, geez, she is. And I love her mother said she was gonna spend
Yes,
summer
so
in
if you go down here,
with some kind of internship.
like if you just minimize, it won't show up there. But if you X out, it's good.
Sorry for the delay. We will get started pretty soon. We had a workshop before, so we had to take a break.
Well, and
Now we're gonna show up, but if
Ann's
you go
never
like
been
this.
to DC. Absolutely, and I said, this is your opportunity, because, you know, she's there, she'll know where everything is, and I went on 2 senior trips with the New Haven High School, and I had.
Oh, you got
in
transitions?
Alexandria, he was in the Air Force.
I looked at it through my
I was
email
in
previewer,
DC a
so
lot.
I didn't even know.
And it's so neat. And I tell you, that trip with the New
Yeah,
Haven
so did I on the email.
because a lot of them had never been out of the state. This was in 78. Yes. Oh. And those guys were hysterical. They were driving across Indiana. I think it was Ron Walkenhorst. And he's great. He was crazy about tractors. And they're all looking out the window. And I said, what are you looking at? Well, that's a such and such, and that's a so-and-so. And I mean, they did the tractors. And then we drive into DC, and no, into New York. And they were having a transit strike. So there were all these insane people on the streets walking. And this kid leaned over the seat behind me and he said, "Good." I said, oh, who knows? I don't know. It's great because a lot of those kids would never have that opportunity.
My niece, my sister said faceplate morning.
But they were watching cybersecurity. My brother is watching. It's really interesting.
Call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, April 8th at 7 PM. Gina.
Marco Gonzalez.
Here.
Mark Leisner.
Here.
Mark Piantek.
Here.
Tom Holtmeyer.
Here.
Mayor Hagedorn.
Here.
John Borgman.
Here.
Chuck Watson.
Here?
Chad Briggs.
Here.
Carolyn Witt.
Here.
Mike Wood.
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here.
Sarah Skeen. Here.
Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. Pledge. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2024. If you've had a chance to read those, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 3, file number 240401, special use permit 331, Olive Street, short-term rental. Sarah?
Okay, so the first item we have for you is special use permit at 331 Olive Street for short-term rental. The zoning is R2 overlay, which means that if you approve, they will get a buffer. As you can see, the buffer around the other 2 short-term rentals in that area is some distance, I think about 50 feet. So the house is here where the star is, the blue star, so you can kind of see the space around that residence. They do have a driveway that will fit at least 2 cars, and then we have on-street parking. So this is visual from the front, and then angled. Ooh, where'd that picture go?
There it is.
Okay.
That it?
Yep, that's what
Okay.
I got on that house.
Any,
Any questions?
yeah, any comments, questions by board? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Come on up. Please introduce yourself, your name, address.
I am Wade Hall. We live at 327, Olive, which is next door. And, you know, we have a couple of questions. Number one is the time frame for this, when they would begin advertising it as short-term rental. And the other thing, and this may not be relevant, is how they, you know, propose to advertise it on what form of media, you know, whether it's, you know, Airbnb or Zillow or what.
I don't know if we as a board really look into that.
Have you talked to them? Have you talked to the owner?
We have talked in general terms, but not specific terms.
I think she's here.
Well, in a little bit, we'll get you up. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry. Okay, you can have a seat and she'll come up and.
It's a team.
So, Kate Boyke, this is my home, 231 Olive. Way to address your questions, we likely would not start using this as a short-term rental until 2025. Can we-
Miss, if you could address the mic.
And the mic, yeah.
Sure, 2025 most likely. And we would primarily be targeting offering this as a residence for families with young children, having cribs available, having bikes available, really family friendly. That's something that we haven't really seen a lot. We have family that come from out of town and they look for short-term rentals that can accommodate, you know, small family, lots of little kids, and they've been struggling to find something. So we were wanting to kind of fill that need as we moved to a larger home to accommodate our growing family. So that's what brings us here today.
Any questions or comments by board?
I think that the second question was primarily
Yeah.
Airbnb and VRBO are,
Yeah, and, you know, potential just depending on the needs to do, like a short-term rental for traveling nurses and those sorts of, temporary workers that are just gonna support the overall economy.
But now the limit is still 30 days, correct?
well, so if it's over 30 days, they do not need a special use permit. So a lot of times the traveling nurses, or like when the bridge was being built, those property owners did not need a special use permit. So this is just to allow like the weekend trips, anything less.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, any opposed? So moved. Item number 4, file number 230202, special use permit, RV park updated site plan. Sarah?
So we have the special use permit for the RV park at 1550 West Main Street. Zoning is agriculture. You saw this last year and approved it. It did get a extended, because they didn't get it completed in the one-year term, so they got it extended at council, but they're coming back with a change to the plan. It's not a major change to the footprint. It is still the same number of lots, the same number of buildings. They're struggling with cost, rising costs of concrete, So they're asking that the hard surface be replaced with gravel, except at entrances where they'll still have the concrete. So this is a side-by-side view of what they had submitted a year ago and then what they're submitting now.
Any other
I don't
comments?
have any other updates.
Okay. Any questions or comments by board members?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
First of all, if we would approve gravel, that is considered a 20-foot fire lane access, that would have to meet the weight requirements for our fire lane structure, correct? Can that be achieved with gravel?
Yeah, well, we have done it in the past. When Riverbend Estates first got built, that same thing came up because between Phase 1 and Phase 2, they asked if they could use gravel, and it was under the condition that they could meet the fire truck, the weight load of 16,000 pounds, I believe is what it was.
It's more than, I think it's.
Or 60,000, 60,000,
Yes.
sorry, yeah. And so they were able to submit dimensions of that, or the depth of that in the specs, so.
And was that on level ground, or was that on elevating? I don't remember.
It was fairly flat in between those two phases, yeah.
Okay, because that's the other concern I have, and especially on that hillside. If we get the rain we had a few weeks ago, I almost guarantee you, without walking on that property, that there's probably water migrating through that hillside.
Yeah.
And anytime you have that with gravel, you're gonna have deterioration of that gravel surface, just like any gravel road does when you have vehicles traveling over it. Whether they're cars, and I know the trailers or RVs aren't that heavy as the fire trucks are, but you still have that deterioration of the roadway with gravel. I personally, and from the emergency services side, would not be in favor of allowing the gravel because of that reason. And long-term, you know, that's the other problem. You still have problems with asphalt if it's not maintained, but at least you have something more solid underneath it to prevent the 2-inch-an-hour rain or the 1-inch-an-hour rain that comes down in a short period of time and washes. Just look or drive around some of these other places in town where you see gravel washouts, and you end up with a large amount of the gravel that's washed off the roadway and onto the asphalt. So, that's it. My comments.
Any other
Yes,
questions?
I have one.
Yep.
So my question has a lot to do with what John's just was, and that is, so the water will come off of the new surface. It's not a hard surface anymore, and it will go into a nearby ditch, correct?
They do show some stormwater retention in there on their plan. It's,
I think they added it on this one since they changed the surface, but
yeah, it is revised a little bit because the
I guess regardless, of that, I'm sure it will run downhill towards the creek. But will that ditch have to be engineered or anything?
yeah, they will have to.
Carry that much
well,
water?
With their plan, their engineer will have to certify that it's not gonna have an increase of runoff,
Okay.
per the code.
It's like John said, there'll be a lot of water coming out there. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments by board members?
I have the same concerns, just the slope of that lot. I mean, I think it's a perfect place for the use of this. And I was excited about when they came in with the first plan for it, and now to back off this much, concerns me with no timeline for improvement, I don't want to spend other people's money, but could they start it smaller? And, over a period of time, get it there without having to use as much of the gravel or the gravel at all on this. That's my concern with it. I was very hopeful we were going to do it and do it right, and I'm concerned we're not doing it right now.
I agree.
Anyone else on the board? Is the applicant here? If you would, please come up.
How you guys doing? I'm Greg, I live at 15 Lexington Lane, and the reason for the gravel versus the concrete right at this moment is you guys know the rising cost of everything. And I'm trying to keep the cost down because I have to. I mean, there's 35 slots there, it's not like a normal RV park where there's 60, 150, there's 35.
he mentioned a timeline and starting with fewer slots and making it concrete.
No,
That's
it's still
not
the
feasible.
same amount of slots, still.
No, I mean, I think he was suggesting, can you start smaller and make it concrete and then expand?
We tried thinking of it in phases and stuff like that, but you can't just grade one little section of the property because you guys, like you said, it's a slope. So we're gonna have it at two different angles like this, where there's a road here where it's all flat for everybody to pull right into. And so that's for that reason, so, I don't know what else to say, because they're gonna be grading it and everything else to make it easier, where it ain't such, such a slope, you can't pull a trailer over there anyways, I know, I've tried a few times.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
So have you looked at doing asphalt as opposed to concrete?
It still is about the same
Is
cost
it?
as
Okay.
concrete right now, I even thought about chip and seal, and
Okay.
I'm like, well, then I'm gonna be running into the same predicament with the chip and seal rolling down a
Mhm.
hard surface, and then I know I'm gonna have everybody yelling at me then.
Mhm.
And it's chip and seal, but I'm like, well, if I just wait a couple years, let it go through, and I'll start, doing all the paths, because I looked into other RV parks. Most of your RV parks are gravel, but then when they go to put concrete on the pads, they actually upcharge them. I didn't know that, until I started looking into it more, and concrete pays more, but, it's a premium spot, there's 35, so I'm not worried about it, I'm just worried about trying to get this through so we can go, to the next spot.
John,
Yes.
I have a question, because I know nothing about this, but if the gravel, I did have a friend that lived on a gravel driveway. She lived off the bottom road across the river in Augusta, and they had to constantly work on their driveway because it would, and it was the dips, to keep it from all disappearing. So I know about that. If this is maintained, will that,
The problem
them
I
a-
have with that, first of all, you're going to have to, I call it terrace or camel hump, a road like this because of the elevation, correct?
I don't think so, it's pretty flat.
Okay? I can't,
Are they graded and everything?
this doesn't show elevations on it, so we can't tell that.
Yeah, they knocked them down pretty good.
So, that would be my concern there, is the change in elevation, of it.
that's how
They would have to do
their
camel
driveway was
humps,
that
yes,
way.
Swales, whatever you want.
But I sympathize with him that that's an expense. But at the same time, okay, I recognize this too. But I was thinking, if he's aware of this and that it has to be maintained until he's able to go in.
But I don't know that there's any guarantees that we can put that into the.
No,
into the
I know
permit.
you can't, really.
So he could build it with gravel, and we could say,
Yeah,
concrete within,
yeah.
he could tell us concrete
looks like
within
a
5
nice
years,
guy.
but there's no guarantee
I
that
know,
we get that,
yeah,
correct,
that is
counsel?
true, that is true.
That's correct. What's the zoning on this property, Sal?
Ag. And I know ag itself does allow gravel, but the original special use permit ordinance had the plan attached that said hard surface. So this is really just an amendment to the existing site plan. Because that was our first thought too, is like, well, if it's in ag, we may not have to, but the original plan did say hard surface, so at that point, once you're changing what's attached to the ordinance.
Did it go to the council first?
Not the change,
No.
Not the change?
just extension.
Okay.
the original went to the council.
Right,
To extend the original.
February 12th, okay.
yeah.
I think since the majority of the gravel is going to be on the level pads, that would really help, if you compact it. The major problem would be the road, which you have access to grade that anytime because there's nothing parked on it. So, that would make the maintenance a lot easier with the pads being level and the gravel being down into the ground a little bit instead of just on top. Compacted, so,
Like that, they dig it down, and they
Yeah.
put felt paper down, they keep all that, you guys seen how they do.
I don't think you have a whole lot of washout if it's done that way. I don't think you'll have a whole lot of washout on those level pads if it's done that way.
Now, when they put one of the bigger tankers on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
The mayor and I were just looking at the numbers, and it looks like it drops about 95 feet from the center of the back lot where lot 13 and 14 would be, down to the main entrance. And in my opinion, that's not very level. Just so the commission.
Are you talking that,
on the- off of
that's
this
the
drawing.
diagram?
On the
Okay.
drawing, Yes.
Yeah.
Unless that's the length of that back property
That
line,
should be the length of that there.
which that might be too, come to think of it, because I don't see any terrain
No,
lines
that's
on
not,
it.
you're right, that's the length of that line.
That's probably the length of that
Yeah,
line.
that's the
Never
length of
mind
that.
then.
The length of,
So, is there any way that we could get terrain grades shown on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think BFA has that for you. Yeah, well, because you submitted a grading plan. So,
Do we have that here as as part of the
I don't have it
document?
available to you,
Okay,
but I could, our engineering department approved a grading plan for
I
it.
mean, that might have some bearing on from what I'm hearing. I'm not sure it would change my mind any, but
I agree with you. The pads are not my concern. I'm not worried about the runoff of the pads, because those, obviously, you gotta keep level. It's your roadways throughout there that,
Yeah, that gotta be maintenance.
they got it right.
Years until it, until I can make money and stuff.
And I sympathize with you. I'm rooting for you, believe me. I just,
yeah, I agree.
Any questions or comments by board? All right, thanks, we'll see.
Thanks, Greg.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this? Any further discussion by board?
The only question I would have, is there a timeline here that he has to have it reviewed or approved within, since the first one was a little over a year ago? We have to have this acted on tonight, or do we have some time that we could get the grade plan and look at that to see what the elevation?
He has, council approved a year extension in February, this February.
Okay,
So they have till February 25 to break, or have it substantially complete, I guess.
so one more month, could we have the grade plan next month to look at? And
You can make that motion.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
asking if that's possible. If it
Yeah,
is,
there, I know the grading plan was submitted, and I know BFA has it, so.
I would make a motion to table till next month to review the grade plan.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Right,
So this will be on the May agenda then, and, we'll have Sarah check with Charles to see what we have on file. If not, we'll contact you to get.
come on up, if you have a question.
Bad idea. That might help his cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Second Monday.
second Monday.
13th.
And,
I'm trying to get all these bids right,
no, I'm
organized with everything.
I'll tell you something else. It may not hurt you a bit to bring somebody from BFA in there to help address some of the concerns we have. I mean, because if they've done the work on it already, from their point of view,
They would have.
it may help your case, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if Rick would have known to be here, he would have been here, he would know that bid stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what I was getting myself into.
We don't know sometimes, too. Yeah.
Does it?
All right, so it's tabled till next month, and we'll review that plan.
So after that, then I can start getting all the bids back.
Well, it'd go to,
Council.
it'd go to council on May
The weekend.
20th, 22nd. Oh, 20th, I'm sorry. I was looking at April.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure they have already done it, they just don't have to post it. Right.
Moving on to item number 5, R2 Overlay Code Amendment.
All right, so we have a R2, two-family district and an overlay district on that. And the purpose of that R2 district is to allow for the development of two-family dwellings as infill in certain parts of the city of Washington. Currently, the minimum depth of the front yard setback is 25 feet. The minimum size of a lot that you can build a single-family home on is 10,000 square feet. And then if you are gonna build a two-family, it's 12,000 with a max coverage of 35%. Well, and I'll show you in a couple of slides, most of these parcels that are in the R2 overlay district are kind of small. They're, 7,000, on the bigger end, not very large lots. So we have homes that are kind of in disrepair, that need to be torn down, but nobody wants to do it because what are you going to build on it? You have lots that are empty, nobody wants to do anything with them because what are you going to build on it to make a profit? So we're proposing that we change the setback, mostly because most of those homes are from a time period where they were a lot closer to the street and the sidewalk. And then with the new code, we kind of pushed those newer homes back, and it's got this like zigzag disjointed look in the neighborhood, so we're trying to bring that back. And then changing the family lot size to a 6,000 square foot across the board. So whether it's single family or two family, you can put on a 6,000 square foot lot. And then just for the sake of sanity, if you look at a lot of those lots, we're not meeting the 35% lot coverage. It's a, shouldn't say crapshoot, but we got all kinds of stuff being built on these lots, and it's kind of hard to enforce, and it doesn't make any sense when you have those setbacks anyway. So here are some examples. These two lots here with the red stars, a lot of people come in at least once a week saying, what can I build there, what can I build there? And we have to tell them single-family home because they're both, one's 7,000, one's a little over 6,000 square feet. And that's not good because they're not going to make a profit on that. You can also see a 601 Locust that it's set back really far, so again, it makes the neighborhood look a little out of whack. But the surrounding homes, and I measured that, I didn't go out there with a ruler, but I went and used my GIS tool, and it's about 12 feet on 6th Street, and then on Locust, you can see it's like 10 to 6 feet from the street. So to bring those houses back forward makes more sense in those districts. And then, of course, you can see some of the lot sizes, like across the street. You've got some pretty large buildings on a smaller lot. So again, you just have a variety of types of buildings on different size lots, but none of the lots are very big to actually accommodate two-family development. Oh, and then I went ahead and pulled an aerial, or not an aerial, but a Google map picture of that one house that's in question, and you can kind of see it's just doesn't fit with the neighborhood. And then the vacant lot next to it.
There are huge neighborhoods in the city where they're doing infill, and some of these infill houses are not huge, and the lot isn't huge, but these new houses are gorgeous. Of course, they're expensive. I mean, Kirkwood is a scary place, but I think this would really open up some development in an existing neighborhood. Not everybody wants to go out and, go into a neighborhood where it's all new, and, a lot of times you have a certain charm of, and if you can build new in an existing footprint. My brother built a house on 314, anyway, it was Stafford, and there was a pipe, and the city moved the pipe because it wasn't buildable. And he built a small one-car garage, one-bedroom house, which he had no trouble selling because not everybody wants, huge. And I think this is great. I think this is a good idea.
I think it's aligned with at least, we're kind of, the next comprehensive plan, making things very equitable, diverse. Especially, if you look at that lot, to say that people are already wanting to buy it and redo it, and we just have this current code that doesn't allow that, we're kind of
You're right.
arm-barring
This is exactly
ourselves.
what we're talking about, yeah.
Sarah, can you go back to the slide that had the comparisons, please?
Oh, yeah, the codes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, the only concern I have is the depth of front yard. being 10 feet if it's going to be on an intersection. If you look at, go back to that map again, if you would, where the star is at 601 Locust. If we allow that to go 10 feet lot line, correct? Am I-
We already have in our code a site triangle code where you have to be, you draw 20 feet back from the intersection
Okay,
and draw a triangle, and everything has to be out of that, fencing.
so that would
shrubs.
fall under the proposed.
Yeah, all, yes.
Catch that.
All intersections.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in our supplementary section for all development. There's a site triangle.
Okay.
And it's, 20 by 20, and you draw a line between the two.
Then the other question, if we reduce the size of the lots and now they have two homes on it, does the code still cover the distance between side lots, property lines, so we have the distance between the buildings maintaining the same and not have to get houses closer together? Because if you get closer together, you have higher density, and I'll just say an example. The duplex catches fire, next thing you know, it's 3 foot from the property line, and now you have an exposure.
But I don't think they were gonna build 2 structures on that 6,000 square foot.
No,
lot. It
but
was
you would
just
have 2
multifamily.
residents,
Yeah.
because you're allowing a duplex.
Yeah, one up, one down.
Okay, I'm just saying, though, it's gonna be more structure.
Yeah, so the side yard setback is not changing. There'll still be 12 feet between.
Still 12 feet, okay. That answers my question.
And I think the only thing I want to add to Sarah's is that there's not a ton, in the R2 overlay, there's not a ton of vacant lots, but this has been a common question. Sarah's just been more proactive about it than I was, that people come and say, well, at the sale of those, that's only going to work if we can put one up, one down. And right now, it's, well, you have to do single family. And when you look at R2 overlay, that's the whole point, is to allow that mix of single family, or not what I call a duplex.
Correct.
Where they're side by side. It's where you got an A and a B unit, one up, one down.
Two-family, like we have in a lot of older homes around town.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the whole creation of R2 overlay back in whenever, I don't know, 2012.
John must have nightmares all the time.
Introduce yourself, please.
No, the reason the question that I've got is just to make sure that we don't address, I guess, where front entry garages, so that they're not having situations, because we've had situations where people have built homes closer to the street, try to go ahead and match it, and they end up putting a driveway at the front entry garage, and the car's sticking out there in front of the sidewalk.
Correct.
I don't think you want to continue that. I
No.
guess that'd be my only concern if we don't have anything in it that says that. So, most of the new construction that you see, they have front entry garages. And I guess that would be my only concern, is do we have anything to combat that? So that 25-foot setback is always there. I'm not combating that because I agree with this. We made those changes years ago to this R2 overlay, and I think it was good. But that 25-foot setback always accommodated the vehicle. So it wouldn't be setback. I guess, I just don't want to have a situation where we tell the developer he's out there, builds a front entry garage, and then the car's sitting over the sidewalk.
I think you could.
I mean, I don't know if we need to put something in addition to this.
Yeah, you could put in there if 10 feet unless you have front entrance, unless you have a driveway, then it has to be, I think 19 feet is what our parking space is, 9 by 19, but. So you could just
That
make
will
it
also
20.
be reviewed by the building department, right? So couldn't they make that decision?
Well, we should have something
We should.
in writing
Yeah.
that says it.
Well, they can
Yes.
bring it to us.
Have it
Yeah.
codified is always good, and to be honest, sometimes in a site plan, they won't show a driveway, because in this area, they don't all have driveways, and then they'll put it in later.
Okay.
So,
And do we have areas like this that have sidewalks? I don't think this area has sidewalks
oh yeah,
currently.
plenty of R2 overlay has sidewalk.
That's what I thought. So I think that's a valid point, Darren. If we can incorporate that somehow into this.
Yeah, that could be an easy change.
Yeah, and you can see on the house on Locust Street, they have the house 6 feet to the street or to the sidewalk, and then the garage is further back,
On the side.
yeah.
Or even that house that's on the corner of 6th and Walnut, for example, the driveway comes in on Walnut, in front of the house is facing 6th. That's
Right.
Or typically what you see in those older neighborhoods, they've got a single driveway that goes inside of the house.
And garages in the rear, yeah.
And much of,
Engelman's.
much of R2 overlay has alley access as well. Sure. But yeah, if you're gonna have some infill, you wanna protect from that, so it's
Right.
easy to ride in.
Guys, it goes without saying, anything we can do to improve something, a house that you can walk to town is a good thing, and this does that.
Well, not only that, like I said, you know, just these ones that really need to be torn down.
Absolutely.
And something,
Absolutely.
something done to the,
Yep.
And that's why I like it, just, and especially in the R2
Some of
overlay
them
district,
we need to go.
that's,
yeah.
Don't quote me.
Yeah, this is a great idea, I think. Good concept, and
So is there something we can put in to address that?
Can we approve with the change
To allow.
that was mentioned on the, or do,
Yeah, conditionalize it to say that 10 feet unless has driveway access in the front, then must be 20.
The house must be 20 or the garage must be 20?
Well, the setback has to be 20 regardless. We don't allow, I mean, garage or house, setback's the setback.
Do we have a pending contract on any of these lots?
No.
I'm just wondering if we can bring it back to you.
That's what I would ask.
Well, no, so we have condemned this house and we gave them 60 days to tear it down and they.
60 days are up.
60 days are up, and the buyer that they have that would tear it down and build on it is contingent on,
Tonight.
yes.
Well, I think that they could probably still, I mean, I think everybody's gonna be in agreement to move in this direction.
Yes.
right, that's why I'm okay with the,
And we'll get the language
putting the
right at
condition
council.
on it.
We can get the language right at council then.
Well, it's up to
Yeah.
them, they're content with that. I guess, like I said, we just gotta put something in there so you know. I've just seen that too many times where houses built in the 70s, 80s, and they built those, and they tried to match the front setback, but then somebody still put that front entry garage.
Right.
And it is an inconvenience for people to have to walk out into traffic and then walk back.
now on the percentage of lot coverage, the 35% that you're eliminating, will that change at all? Will you put a new percentage in?
It said no percentage.
Yeah, that's up to
percentage.
you.
Okay, and what about
Leave
the,
that open.
what about the square footage on these two-family buildings?
Yeah.
Is that gonna be a maximum on that? Or,
So the reason, I mean, we didn't have a percentage in there is because you already have setbacks, and then accessory structure cannot be larger than the square footage of your home.
okay,
So
Right.
that protects you from building a house and then a huge accessory structure in the back, as long as you meet setbacks. Yeah.
that works.
Right.
And
So
a
the
pool and a
percentage
shed
I
would
would-
count as two, so.
Percentage, I understand eliminating that, because how do you, as a staff, go out and measure that on every one that you're going to? Yeah. I mean, as long as we have the setbacks like we talked, I'm fine with that.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass it.
With the
With the condition.
condition.
Condition, yes.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
That's good.
Second that.
Rocco did.
And we'll trust you to get it right.
What's your address?
Well, so if it's wrong, you can come talk about it.
So maybe we need to come to council and make sure it is that? That would be awesome, seriously.
That'd be good.
Seriously. I would appreciate that if you could do that.
Last item, are you ready to go? Last item is the number 6, public hearing on the comprehensive plan, short-term goals.
So we had the workshop before this, we talked about the short-term goals. We're going to have 2 of these, so the first one tonight, and then council would have that same presentation given to them. We would then ask council for a resolution of support, thank you. And then we can bring it back in May. So really tonight's just to show in the minutes and when we bring it to adoption that we had 2 more opportunities for the public to comment on this.
Tim, you ready?
So,
Thank you all. Part 2,
Yeah.
second time tonight. My name is Tim Bryan. I'm principal with H3 Studio, and focus on, as Sal was mentioning, the community vision, the goals and strategies, summary of the future land use plan, and then the implementation action items. So, again, this plan was developed over the course of 18 months with a pretty extensive community engagement process that consisted of a series of 3 stakeholder focus groups early on in the process, 2 business owner roundtable meetings. The city convened a project steering committee, whom we met with 5 times throughout the process. And then at key points in the process, the visioning phase, the development of draft recommendations, and the development of final recommendations, we also had 3 large-scale public workshops that were well-attended, typically between 35 and 50 community members in attendance at each of those workshops. And then an online comprehensive plan survey that was hosted on the city's, or was available on the city's website. 394 total responses to that survey, of which 343 were Washington residents. So we were very pleased with the overall level of engagement and the number of individuals within the community that were able to provide input on the plan. Coming out of that community engagement process, there were a series of key community priorities that were identified, and these were identified, again, based specifically on community feedback, resident and stakeholder feedback. Those include the need for workforce development, housing diversity and affordability, road improvements and congestion mitigation in Washington, particularly on Highway 47 and Highway 100, enhancements to the 5th Street corridor, continued work on downtown Washington and riverfront development, diversifying the city's jobs base, enhancing parks, trails, and recreation amenities, developing the East-West Parkway road system south of Highway 100, and finally, ensuring effective implementation of the comp plan. So developing the plan in such a way that it's really set up to be implemented by the city from day one. And those community priorities really formed the basis of how the various recommendations of the comp plan update were developed. So the recommendations were developed to address those community priorities in particular. The recommendations for the comp plan consist of an overall vision statement, a series of goals and strategies, and then a variety of recommendations for the future land use plan and other physical facilities and infrastructure within Washington. So we'll quickly run through each of those. The community vision statement states that Washington will leverage its rich history, riverfront environment, and economic development success to position itself as an innovative and regionally recognized complete community to support regional cooperation, a highly skilled workforce, a diverse economy, and a vibrant, high quality of life for current and future residents. And again, just to reiterate that this idea of a complete community was very important in the community engagement process. The fact that the committee members and the members of the public did not want the city to only focus on tourism or only focus on housing or only focus on jobs, but to focus on all of those things and developing an integrated community with great amenities that supports principally the residents of Washington. So that's very important because that sort of served as an overall guiding principle for the plan. That vision statement is then supported by a series of 7 goals, each of which has subsidiary strategies for implementation. We'll run through those now one by one. Not all the strategies, of course, but the 7 goals. So the first goal, community history and regional distinction. Washington will celebrate its community history of entrepreneurship, resiliency, and its location on the Missouri River by enhancing its regional identity and connection Goal 2, economic diversity and amplification. Washington will build upon its current economy to diversify and attract new businesses by providing training programs, support, and amenities targeted towards a well-educated and highly skilled workforce. Goal 3, downtown expansion and enhancement. Washington will expand the defined footprint of downtown to strengthen its identity within the city and to enhance downtown by developing surrounding areas such as Fifth Street as a part of downtown. 4, housing development and diversification. Washington will provide a diversity of housing types, inclusive of workforce and entry-level housing, to accommodate the next generation of young families, professionals, and workers, as well as future growth in the community. Goal 5, transportation and infrastructure. Washington will improve its overall major road connectivity, city gateways, and expand infrastructure and utility services to future development areas, as well as improve existing infrastructure to accommodate continued development within city limits. Goal number 6, natural resources, parks, and recreation. Washington will capitalize on its riverfront and other natural resources to enhance and expand park and recreation opportunities, improve and expand walkability and bikeability, and create a safer, healthier, and more desirable environment for all citizens and visitors. And then finally, governmental progress, goal number 7. Washington will commit the current and future governmental members to actively strive for interjurisdictional cooperation, relationship building, and efforts to advance the goals of the Washington community, and the comprehensive plan. And so these 7 goals include 54 individual strategies, again, that are subsidiary to each of the goals. And those strategies are actionable items that the city and partners can move forward with. And those form the basis of the implementation plan that we'll get to in just a moment. So in addition to the policy and programming recommendations that those strategies contain, there are also, the comp plan also contains the future land use plan, as well as physical facilities plans for city infrastructure. And the recommendations of those plans also serve to fulfill some of the strategies that are under each of those goals. So we'll quickly run through those plans right now. Starting with the future land use plan, obviously this sets out a vision for the future physical development of Washington using a system that we refer to as community place types. And fundamentally what this does is it links land use with overall development character, so character of the built environment. So this is a qualitative land use strategy, and it's organized around a series of these community place types. There are 12 individual community place types in total. Starting out with open space, parks, and natural features, which form kind of the basic framework for development within Washington. Obviously, the Washington's historical settlement, based on its riverfront location, its topography, the creeks, are very important. And today, those systems orchestrate the majority of Washington's outdoor and park recreational amenities. Then there is a system of civic, commercial, and mixed-use amenities, employment centers, from the commercial retail corridors to the industrial areas, downtown, the various institutions, and smaller neighborhood-scale retail and commercial areas. And so these really form the edges and centers of residential districts or neighborhoods within Washington. And interestingly, this is a pattern that has occurred organically over time, but we feel it's important, and working with the city, they felt it was important as well to make sure that the plan reinforces that, because that is such an integral part of Washington's built character. And then finally, So that is the future land use plan. One thing to note on page 5.5 of the plan document, there is a table that correlates the land use, the land use characteristics or categories, or the community place types, as it were, with existing residential or existing zoning districts. And essentially within this, what you'll see is that in order to achieve the future land use plan as it's presented in the comp plan, there would essentially need to be 4 key modifications made to the city's zoning code. Updating 2 existing zoning districts and creating 2 new overlay districts. But one of the strengths of this community place type system is that it does naturally set up those zoning code updates because of the way that it ties the land use to the built environment. 2 quick examples of that we covered in greater detail in the work session. The mixed use innovation overlay district. In the comp plan document, there is presented a whole series of detailed recommendations about both building location as well as uses within that overlay to be able to support the development of new advanced manufacturing businesses within Washington. And likewise, the type 5 general mixed use district, which covers the city's major corridor commercial areas, such as along Highway 100, because the comp plan calls it out as a future mixed use district and calls for permitting mixed use development within that, area, which is today a strictly commercial area. The comp plan illustrates some ways in which that evolution of those areas could occur over time with different types of mixed use development. And so that is the future land use plan. And then the future land use plan is also supported by 3 physical facilities plans. Again, these are the infrastructure plans of the city. There is a streets and roads plan, which calls out various qualitative improvements, streetscape, public realm, public facilities improvements to key roadways and street corridors within Washington to help achieve the vision of the future land use plan. There is a parks, trails, and open space plan, which recommends enhancements to existing city park facilities, the expansion of city parks, the city park network with some new facilities, including a large-scale outdoor sports recreation complex, which is indicated on some of the vacant ground that the city currently owns at the Washington Airport. And then also recommendations for trail and greenway connectivity throughout the city. And then finally, the bicycle and pedestrian facilities plan looks at all of the various bike and pedestrian facility types, and those including both on-street facility types like bike lanes and shared lanes, as well as off-street types like greenway and trail connections, and it actually provides recommended alignments and facility types for each of those depending on their location. Important to note that these things are not set in stone, but they are again designed to provide actionable recommendations that the city can use to identify projects and then connect projects with available funding resources, including grants. And having these called out in the plan with a fairly high degree of specificity makes it much easier for communities to access different funding mechanisms for implementation. And so that segues into the implementation strategic action plan, which is the final chapter of the comp plan document. And that section consists of basically 3 components. There are a series of 7 early action items that are identified first. either by establishing regulatory and policy frameworks, initiating key catalytic projects, and in general, helping to build momentum towards plan implementation and actually demonstrate to the community and stakeholders that the plan is moving forward. Then the second section is the implementation matrix, which essentially takes all of the 54 strategies that were identified with the associated goals, and it assigns them a time horizon for implementation, either short-term, 0 to 3 years, medium-term, 3 to 7 years, long-term, 7 years and greater, as well as responsible parties for implementation. And then finally, short-term implementation action items take the short-term strategies from the overall implementation matrix and provides additional detail about how the city can move forward with achieving those recommendations. So to quickly go over the 7 early action items that are presented first in that chapter, those are, number 1, to establish an outcome reporting system to provide a way for the city staff, the Planning and Zoning Commission, other elected officials, and the community to be in communication about what's being done and what's been completed, helping to kind of maintain accountability for plan implementation. Number 2, completing those strategic updates to the city's zoning code. Again, basically making 2 updates to existing zoning districts and then establishing 2 new overlay districts. Number 3, establishing a high-tech education and job training facility in Washington in partnership with an existing educational institution. That could be East Central College, it could be State Tech in Lynn, Rankin. Hasn't been determined who that would be yet, but basically getting a branch location open in Washington. That was something that came up through the engagement process and really gained a lot of traction with both the steering committee as well as the public as a key way of helping to diversify and ensure that Washington's jobs base is future ready and continues to be competitive. Number 4, developing a downtown master plan and 5th Street master plan inclusive of a comprehensive parking strategy. Number 5, completing phase 1 of the East-West Parkway, basically on either side of Highway 47. Number 6, continuing to pursue strategic annexation of land around Washington, focused primarily on that East-West Parkway implementation, as well as any potential annexation that might be required for the 7th early action item, which is the development of an outdoor athletics complex, which currently has been identified for city-owned land at the airport site. So those are the 7 early action items. Most of them, the first 5, essentially are sort of intended to be completed within, well, actually, they're all really intended to be completed to some extent or another within 7 years of plan implementation. So these would be kind of the top priority items that the city should look at over the term of the comprehensive plan. The implementation matrix, it's far too detailed to go through one by one, but I'll explain how it is structured. So this is organized according to the comprehensive plan goals. So the goals listed first, then under each of the goal are the goals' constituent strategies. And for each strategy, there is an assessment of the collective impact of that strategy on each of those 9 key community priorities that we talked about at the beginning. So the strategies are assessed by either having a primary action, a secondary action and effect, or an indirect effect on each of those key community priorities. Then there's the implementation time frame, short-term, medium-term, or long-term. And finally, there's a list of the departments and or other organizations that would be responsible for implementing each of those strategies. And then finally, for, again, the strategies in the implementation matrix that have been classified as short-term, which is 0 to 3 years. Those are then further detailed in the implementation action items. So in this section, those strategies are actually organized according to the City of Washington department that would be the primary implementer of that strategy. And then under the department is listed the short-term plan strategy. In some cases, as you can see on the screen, there are subtasks. So the strategy might need to be broken up into several items. And so each of those subtasks is listed. Then there's the department that is primarily responsible for implementation listed in the next column. And that actually can vary between the primary strategy, and if there are subtasks, there might be different primary implementers for subtasks, even though there's, in this case, economic development is responsible for the overall strategy. Then there are potential partners listed. These could be other city departments, or it could be third-party organizations or entities. And then finally, for the strategy and for each of the potential subtasks, if those exist, there are time frames for implementation measured in months and years. So what this really is intended to do is, when a city department is putting together its annual budgeting, for instance, the economic development department, as an example, they can go to the plan and they can see everything that has been earmarked in the plan that they are primarily responsible for, so they can use that for planning. It's intended that that be used for planning for at least 3 years. And again, in conjunction with the outcome reporting system, then that would allow them to sort of check off things as they get completed. Just to be perfectly clear, these were developed in conjunction and with review from all of the applicable city departments that are identified as potential implementers. So city staff, department heads have weighed in on these implementation recommendations. So with that, I will turn it back for comments in the public hearing.
Any comments?
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Please introduce yourself, your address.
My name is Charles Shrubford, and I live at 1701 East Rose Lane, and I was at the last conference, and I agree with John, it was a disaster. There was a question asked then, and I'm gonna ask that tonight, which I didn't get an answer. How can you put this comprehensive plan in the county, like Franklin County or Warren County, and then when you annex, say, 5 years or who knows, 10 years from now, say, okay, this comprehensive plan is enforced. And if you don't like the comprehensive plan, then you have to go ahead and amend it. It's almost like putting zoning on their property now, and then when they get annexed into the city, then you come along and say, well, you don't like the zoning, you gotta go through planning and zoning and change it. It's like an extra hurdle you have to do. Is there a law that allows you to go ahead and put this in the county on other piece of property without damaging you? Are you damaging these people's property by putting a comprehensive plan on their property and they're not in the city?
We'll let our counselor answer that, I think.
We litigated that very similar issue some years ago when we developed the East-West Gateway, or the East-West Parkway plan, which predominantly was outside of the city of limits. It was out in the county, in the unincorporated Franklin County. And at that time, the court said, yes, we had the authority to plan for future development, not only within the city limits, but outside of the city limits.
But when they did that, East-West, it had to begin in the city and go through the county and back into the city.
Because the statute specifically talked about roadways leading to and from the city, but we're not just designing roadways now. We're talking about the comprehensive planning for the city, both now and in the future.
I know, but what law gives you the right to go ahead and put this on somebody's property in the county,
We're not doing anything to anybody's property. It's a future map, a future plan for how the city anticipates growing both within the city limits and outside of the city limits into the future.
Okay, now, if somebody owns this piece of property and they see this on there, they might not be able to sell their property.
Well, you show me a concrete example where that's occurred.
Well, let me give you, not that it occurred, I don't know if it occurred before, but if somebody's land is, say they're using it as commercial today, and they're in the county, and this plan shows it as residential, then once they get annexed into the city, it'll be residential in the plan, and to change the plan, you have to amend it. That's what we did in the past. So, if somebody wants to buy this commercial property that's in the county, and it goes into the city later, they might not want to buy it. Are you damaging that person's property today?
No.
And looking at the map, that scenario does not exist in this proposal. There's not any commercial property, existing commercial property that's proposed to be residential. It's all on the highway.
Charlie, I could not disagree with you more about this being an important plan. It has helped me since I have become mayor. Every decision we make about land or whatever, Darren and Sal and I say, does it fit the comprehensive plan? Everybody in this town could have influence and input into that comprehensive plan. Would you have us have no plans at all, going willy-nilly about?
No, I understand a plan for the future, but you're putting a plan in another area. How would you like if the plan, the county would put a comprehensive plan in the city and say, we want less residential, we want more commercial so we can get the tax, and more industrial so we can get more people coming and more jobs. It's kind of vice versa.
When they come in, we decide how they're coming into the city limits. And even though we may say it's commercial, they may want R1, whatever, and we allow it for whatever reason. But we're just saying, in general, this is what we see as the future, so people that are buying the property also know where are the potential uses that the city's seeing. And in the county, too. You know, it helps everyone. County for years didn't have a plan, really.
And I understand you need a plan for the future, what you want to do, but when you're putting this on somebody's property that's not in the city, and then when you annex them into the city, you say, you gotta amend that comprehensive plan if you want to change this comprehensive plan. And it just seems like,
Darren, do you know that ever happening? I mean, if they are commercial, they'll usually come in commercial, right?
I can address some of these.
Okay. Yeah. All right, anything else?
Yes, I also want to ask, how come you educated Sal so much that he's going out and finding a better job?
That's our mistake.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this? Darren, if you want to come up and.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I can cite from an example. Typically, it's been 10 years since the city has put an annexation measure on the ballot. So it's been a long time. Most of the stuff that we get is voluntary annexation. We work with those developers. They know what we expect of them in those areas. And it's a lot of it, the voluntary annexation we've seen is the residential growth that you've seen in the southeast quarter. You guys know that. I don't have to tell you that. So they pretty well know that that's the type of land use that we expect in those areas. I cannot remember the last time we had a conflict with that, to be quite honest. I'm not saying that there couldn't be, but I think it's just a matter of us to make sure that if somebody had proposed a use that was gonna be another undue burden on our utilities, this is the whole reason why we plan for this stuff, so that we make sure that that doesn't happen. I will make a comment about something that's a little bit different that we talked about with staff this afternoon, and we talked about it throughout this whole process, was, and in earlier drafts, Tim had some maps that showed different levels of density for residential, and it got much more greater detail than what you see on the maps tonight. We have typically in the past, this is my third comprehensive plan that we've had with the city, we typically have had residential here, commercial here, So, one of the concerns that we had when we saw those density, determinations, I guess, is like, okay, what is high density, what is low density? Define that, you know what I mean? And so in this case, what we've got is basically the low density areas that you have are 7,500 square feet, or more. And anything less than that is the higher density residential use, which is what you were talking about in the R2 overlay, which kind of goes around, in and around downtown, et cetera. So, that's, I just wanted to show you that that is a change a little bit than what we have done in the past comprehensive plans, because that's gonna make a difference when a developer comes in here and they come in and they're standing before you, and again, they're gonna be voluntarily annexing the property because they want our utilities. Typically, that's the reason why they're coming. And then they're gonna go ahead and say, well, I want this size development. Well, there may be neighbors that disagree with that. Well, they're gonna point to that comprehensive plan and say, hey, wait a second, what is your plan say? So that's the reason why the city has kind of been open to that in the past in their comprehensive plans with regards to density requirements.
It just said residential.
Yeah, it just said residential, period. It didn't say single family, two family, multifamily. You have done this a little bit more on this map than we have in the previous plans, but like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of, but I wanted you to be aware of that, so that if you do have a development, or we have a voluntary annexation, and they come in and they wanna say, they wanna widen that area, maybe where they wanna put some multifamily in, some people may be pointing to that plan. I know that the language on there is preferred, and that's one of the things that, like I said, we wanna make sure that that's on there. I just wanna make you guys aware of that differentiation that's on there.
Here's the one example that I could see, and I think it can be worked out. Let's say you continue to have that residential growth, and the school district comes in and says, and it's not the case, but let's say, we need a school. So they're gonna identify a spot out by the residential growth and say, we need a school out in this area. They're gonna work with everybody involved, but that would be a perfect opportunity for us to come back in and amend the plan and say, because of the growth, this is because of the growth, we need this.
Institution.
Then we could do that, exactly.
Yep.
That would be the one example that I mean, it's far-fetched, I think, in
Well,
the
I
next
thi-
10 years.
I think the
but-
parks is the same way, that a demand, you know, as you're expanding, you know, you don't want to drop the ball on having parks, the same kind of thing. A quality of life.
Right.
The school district, the parks.
There would be justification for the cause.
Keep them coming, too.
Exactly, that we wouldn't stand in the way of it happening because,
No, no.
Just because we're rigid in a plan says, oh, wait a second.
right.
Right.
It's flexible, it has to be a living, breathing document.
Yes.
And we've had changes before with
Right.
changes that where we had to pivot in situations because the comprehensive plan showed different land use, and it just made sense to go down the path that we were on.
Yeah. Same thing with road connections. We would
Yeah, road, street
move those
connections,
around,
same way.
so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Any further discussion by board?
Folks, everybody knows the amount of people that have contributed to this, but Sal, this is your baby. And you've given us a really dynamite document, if you ask me, and I know it'll help me going
18
forward.
months, it's
so
twins.
Thank you. Nice going away, President.
Yeah, right.
But I think
And-
H3 also.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Yes.
Thank you for your service to the community and this commission
Yes.
especially.
Thank you so much.
We made the right choice.
Don't know if you did, but we.
I assuming then, the next steps on this will be council for a recommendation back to us for approval, or
No, I
will
think
next month for us?
Next month for you guys first, to go ahead and adopt the plan, and then a plan, or
No.
a thing of resolution, or is it opposite?
They have to be last.
They have to be
So,
last, is that,
yeah, because city council technically does not even have to approve it. It's just,
well, we've historically always asked for them for.
To make a recommendation back to us for approval, like we make recommendations to them, this is the one time.
In this case.
Gotcha.
You guys adopt this.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're looking for that next month, I guess is my question?
yeah, ideally, there's 2 council meetings in between here and your next meeting. One of those council would have the same presentation and have a resolution of support, and then in May, you can adopt this.
Good.
And if you have any changes that come up between, you know, after looking at it tonight, just if we can get them to us or Tim as quickly as possible so we can have those on there.
I'm content.
Okay.
Whoa! If that's it, entertain one last motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you, guys.
The game hasn't even started. Oh, it is.
Absolutely.